Marcus Webb sat alone at the corner table of Cafe Paradiso, watching steam curl from his untouched tea. The North End sidewalk beyond the window moved with Saturday afternoon energy.
I'm so proud
Couples
of you,
sharing
my dear.
cannoli, tourists snapping photos of the old brick buildings, families laughing as they navigated the narrow streets. He existed separate from all of it, a man occupying space without inhabiting it. 3 years. 3 years since Sarah's last breath in that hospital room, since Liam had looked up at him with eyes too old for 5 and asked when Mommy was coming home. 3 years of learning to cook mac and cheese without burning it, of figuring out how to braid hair for school pictures, of becoming both parents in a body that still felt like only half a person. The wedding ring caught afternoon light as he lifted the cup. He'd tried taking it off once, 6 months ago, made it as far as the bathroom sink before the panic hit, before the sensation that removing it would erase her completely. So it stayed, a gold band marking a marriage that existed now only in memory, and in the 8-year-old boy currently at baseball practice across town. Marcus checked his phone. Another hour before he needed to pick up Liam from the field in Medford. Another hour of this careful solitude, this practiced routine of occupying public spaces to avoid the silence of their Dorchester apartment. Tea was cheaper than therapy, he used to joke with Sarah. Now it was just cheaper than feeling. The chair scraped against worn tile as someone struggled near the entrance. An elderly woman, silver-haired and unsteady, gripped the doorframe with white knuckles. Her purse slipped from her shoulder as she tried to manage both the heavy door and her balance. Marcus was moving before the thought fully formed, crossing the small cafe in 4 strides. He caught the door, steadied her elbow with his free hand. She looked up at him with sharp eyes, set in a face creased by decades of expression. Fear lived in those eyes, recent and raw. "Thank you." Her voice trembled, but not from age. Would you mind if I sat with you? Just for a moment? Something in her desperation reminded him of Liam that first night without Sarah, the way his son had clung to him as if proximity alone could hold off the dark. Marcus guided her to his table, pulled out the opposite chair. She sank into it with a sigh that carried more than physical exhaustion. Her hands shook as she set her purse down, fingers twisting the leather strap. "Are you all right? Do you need me to call someone?" "I need you to do something very strange." She leaned forward, voice dropping to an urgent whisper. "I need you to pretend you're my granddaughter's fiancé. Just for a few minutes, please. They're watching, and if they find out she lied, they'll force her into a marriage she doesn't want." Marcus blinked, certain he'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" "My granddaughter, Sophia." The woman's eyes flicked toward a table near the back corner. "She told her parents she was engaged to escape an arrangement they've made. They showed up here to meet her fiancé. She texted me desperately, but I arrived too late to help her find someone. Then I saw you, and you have kind eyes, and I'm begging you, 5 minutes, just 5 minutes." Marcus followed her gaze. 3 people sat at the corner table, their postures rigid with tension. A woman in her late 20s, dark hair pulled back, scrubs visible under her jacket, a nurse if he had to guess. Her arms were crossed tight against her ribs, face pale beneath the cafe's warm lighting. Across from her sat a couple in their 50s, the man in a tailored suit that probably cost more than Marcus made in 2 months, the woman dripping with understated jewelry that screamed old money. And standing beside the table, one hand possessively on the back of the young woman's chair, a man about Marcus's age, an investment banker casual, expensive jeans, cashmere sweater, watch that could pay off a car loan. The young woman's eyes met Marcus's across the cafe. Panic lived there, the kind he recognized from his own mirror on bad days. I think you have the wrong person. I'm just... Please. The elderly woman's hand closed over his, surprisingly strong. I know how this sounds. I know what I'm asking. But that's my granddaughter. And those are people who believe love is a business transaction. She's worked 2 jobs to save money for graduate school, to build a life independent of their money and their control. This arrangement with Harrison, she nodded toward the man hovering by the table, is about merging companies, not building a marriage. If they catch her in this lie right now, the wedding contracts are already drawn up. It happens next month. Marcus looked at the young woman again. She turned back to her parents, chin lifted in defiance, even as her shoulders curved inward. Something about that combination, strength and vulnerability fighting for dominance, cracked something in his chest. He thought of Sarah in her hospital bed, fighting until her body had nothing left. He thought of standing helpless, watching the monitors, unable to do anything but hold her hand. He thought of that grinding, useless feeling of being present for suffering he couldn't prevent. Here was suffering he could prevent. For 5 minutes. For a stranger who needed someone to stand between her and people trying to control her life. What's your name? Catherine Morrison. Relief flooded her features. And you are? Marcus Webb. And I'm apparently about to become your granddaughter's fiancé. He stood, straightened his jacket, off the rack from Target, nothing like the tailored perfection across the room, and took a breath. Catherine rose with him, her hand still trembling as she touched his arm. Thank you. You have no idea what this means. They crossed the cafe together. Marcus felt the moment the parents noticed their approach, the way their conversation stopped mid-sentence. The young woman, Sophia, turned, and her eyes went wide with confusion before Catherine gave an almost imperceptible nod. Marcus watched her face transform. The panic shuddered away behind a mask of relief so convincing he almost believed it himself. She stood as they reached the table, and he did what felt natural, slipped an arm around her shoulders, feeling her stiffen for half a heartbeat before she melted into the gesture. Sorry I'm late. His voice came out easier than expected, warm and casual. Traffic on 93 was a nightmare. You know how Saturday construction is. Sophia's hand found his, palm cold and slightly damp. It's fine. I was just telling Mom and Dad about our plans. The man in the suit, Thomas Morrison, Marcus assumed, stood with the deliberate slowness of someone used to commanding rooms. His handshake was firm to the point of aggression, eyes conducting an inventory that clearly found Marcus wanting. And you are? Marcus Webb. He met the man's gaze without flinching, kept his grip steady. I'm engaged to your daughter. Patricia Morrison remained seated, her assessment more subtle but no less thorough. She catalogued his jacket, his shoes, the absence of a designer watch on his wrist. Her smile never reached her eyes. How wonderful. Sophia's been quite secretive about you. We wanted to be sure before involving families. Sophia's voice held just the right note of defensive affection. Her fingers tightened around his. You know how it is when you first start seeing someone? You want it to be just yours for a while. Harrison, Marcus caught his name when Thomas gestured for everyone to sit, hadn't moved from his position behind Sophia's chair. Up close, his cologne was expensive and overwhelming, his smile as sharp as his cheekbones. Strange that we haven't heard Marcus's name until today. Harrison's tone stayed light, but accusation ran underneath. Given how close our families are, Sophia, I would have thought you'd mention someone serious. It happened quickly. Marcus sat, pulling Sophia's chair closer to his in a gesture he hoped looked natural. We met at the hospital where she works. I'm in administration there. The lie came easily, close enough to truth to feel comfortable. He did work at Boston Memorial, just not in administration. Thomas settled back in his chair, fingers steepled beneath his chin. Which department? Facilities management. Also technically true. I oversee maintenance operations, coordinate with department heads about infrastructure needs, manage vendor relationships. All things his supervisor did. Marcus just fixed the broken equipment. And before that? I worked my way up through various positions. Not a lie. He'd started as a general handyman, moved to maintenance technician, became a janitor when Sarah's medical bills made the better benefits necessary. Started in hands-on roles, learned the building systems from the ground up. Patricia's expression suggested she'd detected something off in his phrasing, but couldn't quite pin it down. How did you two meet, exactly? Sophia's hand remained in his, her pulse visible at her wrist. Marcus was fixing something in the ER break room, the coffee maker, actually. We started talking. 8 months ago. Marcus added the detail before anyone could ask, specific enough to sound real. You were complaining about the attending who kept ordering unnecessary scans. Dr. Richardson. Sophia's smile turned genuine for a moment. He's still doing it. And the proposal? Catherine interjected, voice bright with grandmotherly interest that held an edge of steel. Tell them about the proposal, Marcus. He'd been dreading this part. His mind raced through every romantic comedy Sarah had made him watch, every engagement story he'd heard secondhand. Public garden. We were walking around the pond and the swan boats were out, even though it was chilly. Sophia loves those boats. She'd mentioned it once, how her grandmother used to take her. He glanced at Catherine, hoping that was true. I had the ring in my pocket for 2 weeks, waiting for the right moment. But she was talking about this patient she'd helped, this kid who'd come in after a car accident. The way she described making him laugh despite being scared, the way she'd stayed past her shift to make sure he was settled. I realized I was waiting for perfect when I already had it. So I just asked. Right there by the willow trees. Sophia's eyes had gone soft, and for a second Marcus forgot this was performance. The story felt real in the telling, a glimpse of what it might be like to fall for someone slowly, to recognize love in ordinary moments. How romantic. Patricia's tone suggested she found it anything but. And the wedding plans? We're thinking spring. Sophia recovered smoothly. Something small, intimate. We haven't set a date yet. Interesting. Thomas's phone appeared in his hand, fingers moving across the screen with practiced efficiency. Given that I happen to know Harrison's family has been expecting an announcement soon, about a different engagement entirely. The temperature at the table dropped 10 degrees. Sophia's hand went rigid in Marcus's grip. Harrison's smile turned predatory. I'm sure that's just a misunderstanding, Thomas. Though I am curious about the specifics of Marcus's position. Which building does facilities management operate from? The main campus. Marcus kept his voice level, recognizing the trap. Though I'm frequently in the satellite clinics for inspections. And you report to? Director of Operations. Also true. Several layers existed between Marcus and that director, but technically accurate. Salary range for that position must be quite comfortable. The dig landed exactly as intended. Marcus felt Sophia tense beside him, saw Catherine's jaw tighten. But before he could respond, Thomas stood abruptly. This has been enlightening, but I think we've taken enough of your Saturday afternoon. Marcus, why don't you join us for dinner tonight? 7 o'clock. Our home in Beacon Hill. I'm sure you know the area. It wasn't a question. It wasn't even really an invitation. It was a summons, delivered with the confidence of someone who'd never been refused. Marcus felt Sophia's pulse jump against his palm. This was where he could bow out gracefully, apologize, and exit before the situation spiraled further. 5 minutes had stretched to 15. He'd done what Catherine asked, but Sophia's face had gone carefully blank in the way Liam's did when he was trying not to cry, and Marcus found himself nodding. 7 works. Should I bring anything? Just yourself. Thomas's smile was all teeth. I'm very interested in getting to know you better. They dispersed with the coordination of people used to making exits. Harrison held Sophia's coat with exaggerated courtesy, his fingers brushing her shoulders longer than necessary. Thomas and Patricia moved toward a black Mercedes parked illegally in front of the cafe, the kind of car that never got tickets because the owner's name made parking enforcement look the other way. Catherine lingered as they left, her hand finding Marcus's arm. I'm so sorry. I only asked for a few minutes, and Thomas has turned it into... It's fine. Marcus watched the Mercedes pull away, Harrison's Audi following close behind. Is she going with them? No. Sophia's voice came from behind him. She'd stayed back, coat clutched against her chest, eyes bright with what might have been tears, or fury, or both. I told them I had to go back to the hospital for a shift, which is actually true, thank God. She looked at Marcus fully for the first time without an audience, and he saw her really see him, not a prop or a solution, but a person who'd just walked into her mess without knowing the depths. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Catherine, you shouldn't have, I know you were trying to help, but this is insane. And you, she turned to Marcus, you're incredibly kind and incredibly stupid for agreeing to this, and now you're stuck coming to dinner with people who are going to eat you alive. I can handle difficult people. You don't understand. My father is... She stopped, ran a hand through her hair. He built a real estate empire from nothing. He's ruthless when he wants something, and he wants me married to Harrison because Harrison's father owns the development company Thomas has been trying to acquire for 5 years. I'm literally a bargaining chip in a business negotiation. Catherine touched her granddaughter's shoulder. Which is why you told them you were engaged to someone else. Which was a stupid lie because I don't actually have a fiancé, and I thought I'd have more time to figure something out before they demanded proof. Sophia looked at Marcus again, really looked. You work at the hospital. Maintenance, I'm guessing, not administration? He nodded, oddly relieved she'd caught it. Janitor. Technically environmental services technician, but yeah, I mop floors and fix things that break. And you have a son. She gestured to his phone, visible on the table where he'd left it. The lock screen showed Liam at his last birthday, grinning around missing front teeth. Liam, he's 8. I need to pick him up from baseball in 40 minutes. And you're here alone on a Saturday afternoon, drinking cold tea. Not a question, just an observation delivered gently. How long since your wife passed? Marcus looked down at his ring, that gold circle that meant Sarah, and meant loss, and meant the 3 years he'd spent learning how to be alone. How did you know? Because I'm a nurse, and I've seen that look before. The one that says you're surviving, but not quite living yet. Sophia's voice softened. I'm sorry. for your loss, and for dragging you into my disaster, and for... Don't apologize for needing help. Marcus surprised himself with the firmness in his tone. Your grandmother saw someone in trouble and asked a stranger for 5 minutes. I gave them. What happened after that was your father's doing, not yours. You don't have to come to dinner. I can tell them you got called away, or that we broke up, or... I already said I'd be there. He checked his phone again, did the mental math of drive time and dinner length. I'll need to arrange for Liam to stay with a friend, but 7 o'clock is fine. Sophia and Catherine exchanged looks, some grandmother-granddaughter communication that needed no words. Why? Sophia's question came out barely above a whisper. You don't know me. You owe me nothing. This is going to be awful, and my father will ask invasive questions, and Harrison will be there making snide comments, and my mother will judge everything from your clothes to your table manners. Why would you willingly sign up for that? Marcus thought about Sarah, about standing beside her bed feeling useless. He thought about Liam asking why they couldn't fix Mommy if doctors were supposed to make people better. He thought about all the times he'd wanted someone, anyone, to step in and change what was happening, to take some action that made a difference. Because you asked. Because your grandmother asked. Because I can, and that's reason enough. Something shifted in Sophia's expression, skepticism giving way to cautious hope. We'll need to get our story straight. If we're going to do this, we need to be convincing. Thomas will look for cracks, and he'll push until he finds them. Catherine pulled out her phone, typed something quickly. I'm sending you Marcus's number, Sophia. You two should talk before tonight. Coordinate details. They exchanged numbers there in the cafe, and Marcus found himself agreeing to arrive 15 minutes early so Sophia could brief him on family dynamics. She was heading to her shift at Boston Memorial, the emergency department, where she'd been working overtime to save money for graduate school applications. Thank you, Sophia said it, looking directly at him, no deflection or performance. I mean it. Thank you for not running away from this absolute chaos. Ask me again after dinner. Her laugh was short and startled, like she'd forgotten how for a moment. Fair enough. She left for the hospital, and Catherine insisted on buying Marcus another tea before she headed home. They sat at the table where this had all started, where his quiet afternoon had transformed into something he still didn't quite understand. She's a good girl. Catherine's hands had stopped shaking, her voice steady now. Smart, compassionate, determined. Thomas was like that once, before money made him forget where he came from. His father was a construction worker in Southie, South Boston, rough neighborhood back then. My parents said John wasn't good enough for me because he worked with his hands, because he didn't have a college degree. I married him anyway, and he was the best man I ever knew. What happened? Cancer. 10 years ago. Thomas paid for the best doctors, the best treatment, but some things money can't fix. She smiled sadly. He watched his father die despite all his wealth, and I think it broke something in him. Made him believe that if he just had more money, more power, more control, he could prevent any loss. So he built bigger, acquired more, and somewhere along the way, he forgot that his father was happy, that we were happy, even in our little apartment in Southie with second-hand furniture and a budget that didn't stretch to luxuries. Marcus understood that particular delusion, the belief that if you'd only done something different, been something more, you could have changed the outcome. He'd played that game for months after Sarah died, rewriting history in his head where he caught the cancer earlier, where he made more money for better treatment, where he somehow saved her through sheer force of will. Sophia is fighting to be her own person, Catherine continued. She wants to be a nurse practitioner, to open a community clinic someday in a neighborhood that needs it.
But that costs money, and Thomas controls her access to funds. He says he'll pay for graduate school if she makes smart decisions about her future. Marrying Harrison is what he considers smart. And what does Sophia consider it? A prison sentence with good china. Catherine's smile held no humor. Harrison is handsome and educated and from the right family. He's also controlling, dismissive, and treats her like an acquisition. She's tried breaking it off a dozen times. He just goes to Thomas, and Thomas applies pressure. Financial pressure, emotional pressure. The kind of slow squeeze that makes you doubt your own judgment. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from his neighbor, Elena, confirming she could take Liam for the evening. He texted her from under the table during the earlier conversation, and she'd responded with her usual no questions asked helpfulness. Elena had lost her husband 2 years ago. She understood the single-parent struggle, the constant juggling of childcare and obligation. Another buzz, this one from an unknown number. Sophia. My address is 287 Commonwealth Avenue, Apartment 4B. Come at 6:45? I'll fill you in on the family dynamics. Also, wear something nice, but not too nice. Thomas will judge either way, but we might as well be comfortable. He typed back. Got it. Should I bring wine? God, no. Thomas has a wine cellar and will use anything you bring as an opportunity to educate you on proper vintages. Just bring yourself and maybe a good luck charm. Marcus looked at the text, at this stranger who'd somehow become a co-conspirator in the span of an hour. The smart thing would be to back out now, to text an apology and retreat to his safe, small life. He had enough complications without adding fake engagements to wealthy families. But Liam's words from last week echoed in his head, something his son had said over chicken nuggets and homework. Dad, why don't you ever do anything fun anymore? Mom used to make you laugh all the time. This wasn't fun, exactly, but it was something other than the careful routine he'd built. It was a yes instead of a no, action instead of avoidance. He texted back, See you at 6:45. The rest of Saturday passed in a blur of logistics. He picked up Liam from practice, listened to his son's excited recap of batting practice, fielded questions about where Dad was going tonight, all dressed up. Just dinner with someone from work. Not technically a lie. Sophia did work at the hospital, even if their paths had never actually crossed before today. Is it a date? Liam's question came too casual, the forced nonchalance of a kid trying to sound mature. Marcus paused in the middle of sorting laundry. Would that bother you if it was? His son shrugged, studied his sneakers with intense focus. Mom's been gone a long time. Mrs. Rodriguez says it's okay for people to be happy again. After someone dies, I mean. Elena Rodriguez, dispensing wisdom along with after-school snacks. Marcus made a mental note to thank her more explicitly. It's not really a date, just dinner. But hypothetically, if someday Dad went on an actual date, would you be okay with that? Liam thought about it with the seriousness he applied to everything from homework to playground disputes. I guess. As long as she doesn't try to replace Mom. And as long as she likes Star Wars. And baseball. Those are important. Duly noted. Marcus ruffled his son's hair, chest tight with love and loss in equal measure. Go pack your overnight bag from Mrs. Rodriguez's. Include your homework. You know she'll make you finish it before video games. By 6:15, Marcus stood in front of his closet, trying to remember the last time he'd dressed for anything other than work or Liam's school events. His one good suit felt too formal,
jeans too casual. He settled on khakis and a button-down, the kind of outfit that could work for a parent-teacher conference or a date to a mid-range restaurant. The drive to Commonwealth Avenue took him from Dorchester's triple-deckers and corner stores into the tree-lined elegance of Back Bay. Sophia's building occupied prime real estate between the Public Garden and Kenmore Square, the kind of address that required either family money or a salary Marcus would never see. He found parking 2 blocks away, a miracle in this neighborhood, and walked through November cold that cut through his jacket. 6:43. Close enough to early without being absurdly punctual. The building had a doorman, an actual human being whose job was to open doors and announce visitors.
Marcus gave Sophia's name and apartment number, waited while the doorman called up. "Ms. Morrison says to send you right up. 4th floor, take a left off the elevator." The hallway on 4 was carpeted in something too thick to be practical, lit by fixtures that probably cost more than Marcus's monthly rent. Apartment 4B sat at the end, door slightly ajar. He knocked anyway. "Come in, come in." Sophia pulled the door open, and Marcus got his first real look at her without performance or panic. She'd changed out of her scrubs into jeans and a sweater, hair down around her shoulders, face scrubbed clean of the makeup she'd worn earlier. She looked younger this way, and more worried. "Thanks for coming early. I made coffee. Do you want coffee? Or tea? Or something stronger? I have whiskey that Catherine gave me, though I'm not sure if drinking before dinner with my parents is a good idea, or the only idea." "Coffee's fine." Marcus followed her into an apartment that managed to be both spacious and cozy. Books everywhere, medical texts mixed with fiction, photos on the walls, Catherine, younger and laughing, Sophia in nursing school graduation, what looked like childhood pictures at various ages. "Nice place." "It's my roommate's, actually. Julia, she's a surgical resident, basically lives at the hospital. I moved in after I told my parents I was getting my own place. Well, partially my own place. Thomas still pays half the rent as long as I'm making good choices, which is his way of maintaining financial leverage." She poured coffee into mugs that didn't match, hands steadier than they'd been in the cafe. Marcus noticed small things now that he had time to look, the framed children's drawings on her fridge, the stack of MCAT prep books on the counter, the shoes by the door worn down at the heels from long shifts on hospital floors. "So," Sophia handed him a mug, leaned against the counter. "Quick briefing. Thomas Morrison, my father, 58, self-made real estate developer. Came from nothing, built everything, and never lets anyone forget either fact. He'll test you constantly, looking for weakness or deception. Answer his questions directly, but don't volunteer extra information. He'll use it against you." "Got it." Patricia Morrison, my mother, 56, came from old Boston money that's mostly gone now. She married Thomas because he was ambitious and her family was in decline. She cares desperately about appearances, about what people think, about maintaining social position. She'll judge everything about you and do it with a smile. Noted. Catherine, you've met. She'll be there tonight because she lives with them. She had a heart episode a few years ago, and Thomas insisted she move in so someone could monitor her health. Really, it's because he's terrified of losing another parent, but he frames it as practicality. Sophia took a long drink of coffee, gathering herself for the next part. "And then there's Harrison Whitmore III. 34, works in private equity. Family has old money and new money and every kind of money. He's been around since we were kids because our families run in the same circles. We dated briefly in college. My mistake, I was 19 and stupid. And he somehow turned that into believing we're destined to be together. Thomas loves him because marrying me to Harrison merges 2 business dynasties.
Harrison loves the idea of me because I'm one of the few things his money can't just automatically buy.
What do you love?
The question seemed to catch her off guard. She set down her mug, considered it. Nursing. Helping people. The moment when someone in pain finally gets relief. When a scared patient calms down because you took time to explain what's happening. I love that I can make a difference with knowledge and compassion instead of money.
And I want to do more of it. Nurse practitioners can diagnose, prescribe, run their own practices. I want to open a clinic in a neighborhood that needs it, somewhere people can get care without jumping through insurance hoops or waiting months for appointments. The passion in her voice reminded Marcus of Sarah talking about her painting, back before treatment stole her energy. That particular light that came when someone discussed their purpose. Thomas thinks that's naive. He offered to fund a practice in a good area, by which he means somewhere wealthy people would go, somewhere that would make money instead of serving actual need. When I refused, he said he'd reconsider funding my graduate school entirely. Which brings us to the Harrison problem, because Harrison represents access to the life Thomas wants for me. And if I cooperate, suddenly school funds are available again. So you told them you were engaged to someone else? I panicked. Harrison proposed last month. Actual proposal, ring and everything, at some charity gala with half of Boston watching. I said no publicly, and Thomas was furious. The business deal with Harrison's father started falling apart. Thomas gave me an ultimatum: fix things with Harrison or lose all financial support. So I invented a fiancé, bought myself time to figure out an actual plan. Then they showed up at the cafe today, demanding to meet this mysterious man, and I had nothing. She looked at Marcus with something like wonder. Until Catherine found you. A random stranger willing to play along with an insane request from an old woman. What were the odds? Your grandmother is persuasive. She's desperate. We both are. Sophia checked her phone, grimaced. We should go. The house is a 15-minute drive, and Thomas considers lateness a character flaw. Marcus followed her down to the street where she'd parked a 10-year-old Honda Civic that looked distinctly out of place in this neighborhood. Let me guess. Thomas offered to buy you a new car if you made smart choices. Yes. I kept the car my grandmother gave me when I graduated nursing school. It's not much, but it's mine. Paid for, maintained, no strings attached. She unlocked the doors, slid behind the wheel. Fair warning, the heat is temperamental and the radio only gets AM stations. But she runs. They drove through Boston's Saturday evening traffic, streetlights reflecting off the Charles River as they crossed into Beacon Hill. Sophia narrated their relationship as she drove, building a history that felt real in the way good lies do, close enough to truth to be believable. We met 8 months ago, early March. You were fixing the coffee maker in the ER break room during a particularly brutal shift. I was complaining about Dr. Richardson ordering unnecessary scans. You made a joke about how coffee makers and bureaucracy both run on hot air and broken dreams. I laughed, actually laughed, which doesn't happen much at 3 a.m. during a shift. We started talking. How did talking become dating? Slowly. You'd find reasons to be in the ER when I was working, brought better coffee than the break room sludge, fixed things that weren't quite broken yet but could be soon. I started timing my breaks for when you'd be around. 3 months of that before you finally asked me to dinner. Where'd we go? Small Italian place in the North End. Giacomo's. Cash only, always a line, best pasta in Boston. You'd been saving up because you wanted it to be special but not pretentious. We talked for 4 hours about everything except work, books, music, what we wanted from life.
You told me about Liam, about Sarah, about learning to be a single parent.
I told you about the family pressure, the Harrison situation, the dreams I was afraid to chase because they disappointed people. Marcus watched streetlights paint moving shadows across her face as she drove. You're good at this. Nurses are good liars. We tell patients they'll be fine when we're not sure. Tell families we're doing everything possible when sometimes we're just buying time. We construct narratives that make unbearable situations slightly more bearable. She turned onto a narrow street lined with federal-style townhouses, each one worth more than Marcus would earn in a lifetime. The key to a good lie is keeping it close to what could be true. Everything I just said? It could have happened. In some alternate universe where we actually met, maybe it did. She pulled up to a house that managed to look both elegant and intimidating, black shutters and brick facade, and a front door that probably cost more than his car. Lights glowed in every window, and Marcus could see figures moving inside. Sophia killed the engine, but didn't move to get out. Last chance. You can still back out. Say you got an emergency call, sick kid, burst pipe, anything. I'll tell them we broke up tonight, take the hit with Thomas, and you can go back to your normal life. Marcus thought about normal, thought about his quiet apartment and cold tea and the careful routine that kept him functional but not quite alive. Thought about Liam saying he wanted Dad to have fun again, to laugh again. I'm already here. Might as well stay for dinner. Sophia's smile carried relief and resignation in equal measure. Okay then, let's go lie to my family. They walked up brick steps to that expensive door, and Sophia's key turned smoothly in a lock that probably cost more than Marcus's first car. The foyer beyond was all marble and crown molding, a curved staircase rising to upper floors, art on the walls that might have been original or might have been very good copies. Marcus couldn't tell the difference. Thomas appeared from a room to the left, still in his suit from the cafe, but somehow looking even more pressed and perfect. His eyes took in Marcus's outfit with a clinical assessment of someone cataloging weaknesses. Marcus, punctual. I appreciate that. He extended a hand, and Marcus shook it, matching pressure for pressure. Sophia, your mother is in the sitting room. Catherine is resting upstairs, but will join us for dinner. Harrison should be here shortly. I took the liberty of inviting him since he's practically family. Sophia's hand found Marcus's, squeezed hard enough that he felt her tension transmitted through touch. How thoughtful. They were led into a sitting room that looked like it belonged in a museum. Antique furniture, Persian rugs, crystal decanters on a sideboard that was probably older than the United States. Patricia sat in a wing chair that might have been a throne in another life, legs crossed at the ankle in a posture that suggested finishing school. Marcus, how lovely to see you again. Her smile was practiced, perfect, empty. Can we offer you a drink? Thomas has an excellent scotch, or there's wine if you prefer. Water is fine, thank you. A flicker of something crossed her face, approval or disappointment, Marcus couldn't tell. Thomas poured himself scotch, the sound of liquid hitting crystal loud in the careful quiet. So, Marcus, Sophia tells us you work at Boston Memorial in facilities management. How long have you been in that field? Here came the interrogation, dressed up as polite conversation. Marcus settled into the chair Sophia had guided him toward, hyper-aware of every word about to leave his mouth. About 12 years total in building maintenance and operations. I started as a general technician, worked my way through different systems, electrical, plumbing, HVAC. The hospital brought me on 8 years ago. And before that? Various positions, construction, residential maintenance, whatever paid the bills.
College? Thomas asked it casually, but his eyes were sharp. Some community college, never finished. Life got in the way. Sarah got sick, the bills piled up, night classes became impossible with a toddler and a dying wife. But Marcus didn't offer that, just kept it simple. Patricia leaned forward slightly. And Sophia mentioned you have a son? From your first marriage? Liam, he's 8. His mother passed away 3 years ago. I'm so sorry for your loss. Patricia's sympathy sounded genuine, the first real emotion Marcus had heard from her.
Raising a child alone must be challenging, especially with your work schedule.
We manage. Liam's a good kid, smart, resilient. He's had to grow up faster than I would have liked, but we take care of each other. The doorbell rang before Thomas could ask another question. Voices in the foyer, and then Harrison swept into the room like he owned it, carrying wine and wearing the kind of casual confidence that came from never doubting your place in the world. Sophia. He kissed her cheek before she could move away, handed the wine to Thomas. A Brunello I picked up at auction last month. And you must be Marcus. Harrison Whitmore. His handshake was brief, dismissive, the physical equivalent of a pat on the head. He took the seat closest to Sophia, angled his body toward her in a way that excluded Marcus from their sphere. Thomas was just telling me about your role at the hospital. Facilities management. That must be interesting work. The way he said it made clear he found it anything but interesting. Marcus met his gaze steadily, refused to take the bait. It keeps the building running. Not glamorous, but necessary. Absolutely. Someone has to do that kind of work. Harrison's smile was all condescension. I imagine it's quite different from Sophia's career. She's brilliant, you know. Could have gone to medical school if she'd wanted. Some of the best programs in the country were interested. I chose nursing, Sophia's voice carried an edge, because I wanted direct patient care, not years of residency and a mountain of debt. Of course. Though with the right support, debt doesn't have to be a consideration. Harrison's hand found the back of Sophia's chair, not quite touching her, but claiming proximity. Speaking of which, Thomas mentioned you're applying to nurse practitioner programs. Have you settled on which one? I'm still researching options. You should look into Hopkins. I know someone on the admissions board. Could put in a word. He said it like offering a favor, but Marcus heard the transaction underneath. Access in exchange for obligation. Dinner was announced by a housekeeper who appeared silently from the back of the house. They moved to a dining room dominated by a table that could seat 12, set now for 6 with china so delicate Marcus was afraid to touch it. Catherine joined them as they sat, and her presence shifted something in the room's energy. She took the seat next to Marcus, patted his hand. How are you holding up? Fine. Everyone's been very welcoming. Her smile said she knew that for the lie it was. Thomas, this wine is lovely. Much better than my usual supermarket selections. It's a 2015 Brunello di Montalcino. Harrison launched into an explanation of vintages and terroir that Marcus stopped listening to after the first sentence. He caught Sophia's eye across the table, saw her barely suppressed eye roll. The meal was brought out in courses, each one more elaborate than the last. Marcus navigated the array of silverware by watching Sophia, matching her movements. The food was excellent. Some kind of fish with sauce he couldn't identify, vegetables prepared in ways that made them almost unrecognizable, bread that probably cost more per slice than his usual grocery bill. Thomas waited until the main course to resume his questioning. Marcus, Sophia mentioned you have family in the area? Not really. My parents passed when I was in my 20s. No siblings. It's mostly just me and Liam. That must make childcare challenging. What do you do when you have to work late or have other obligations? I have good neighbors. Elena, next door, she's a widow with kids of her own. We help each other out. And Liam's mother's family? Sarah was from Oregon. Her parents are still out there, but the distance makes regular visits difficult. They come for holidays when they can. Patricia dabbed at her mouth with a napkin that probably cost more than Marcus's entire table setting at home. It must be difficult, managing a child and a career alone. Do you have plans for Liam's future? Education, activities? He's in public school, doing well. Plays baseball, likes science. We take it year by year. Harrison leaned back in his chair, wine glass dangling from his fingers. Public school. Interesting choice. Sophia, didn't you mention wanting to send your future children to private schools? I seem to remember a conversation about the benefits of rigorous academic environments. I said quality education matters. Sophia's fork clinked against her plate harder than necessary. I didn't specify where that had to happen. Some of the best teachers I know work in public schools. Of course, though connections do matter, especially for college admissions. The right prep school can make all the difference. He looked at Marcus with something that might have been pity. No offense to public education, of course. None taken. Marcus kept his voice level, refused to show the anger building in his chest. Liam's doing fine. He's happy, healthy, learning. That's what matters to me. Thomas set down his fork with precision, the sound sharp in the sudden quiet. Happiness is important, but so is preparation for the future. Sophia will have children someday. Those children will need advantages, opportunities. Can you provide that on your salary? The question hung there, blunt and brutal. Sophia's face had gone pale. Catherine's lips pressed into a thin line. I can provide love, stability, and a father who shows up. Marcus met Thomas's eyes without flinching. I can teach them that a person's worth isn't measured in their bank account, that hard work and integrity matter more than the name on your degree. I watched my son lose his mother at 5 years old, and we survived that together. I think we can handle whatever else comes. Something flickered across Thomas's face. Surprise, maybe, or reassessment. He picked up his wine, studied Marcus over the rim. Sophia's mother and I want the best for our daughter. Can you blame us for ensuring her future is secure? I can blame you for treating her like property to be managed instead of a person capable of making her own decisions. The words were out before Marcus could stop them, sharper than he'd intended. The table went still. Harrison's eyebrows rose. Patricia's hand fluttered to her throat. Catherine's eyes gleamed with something that might have been approval. Thomas's expression hardened into something cold and evaluating. He set down his glass with careful precision. Strong words from someone who's known my daughter for less than a year. Long enough to see she's being controlled, not protected. And you think you understand her situation better than her own family? I think I understand what it's like to watch someone you care about struggle while everyone around them has opinions about what they should do. Marcus kept his voice steady, but conviction ran underneath. Sophia is brilliant and compassionate and capable. She doesn't need to be managed. She needs to be trusted. Sophia had gone very still beside him, her eyes wide. Harrison's smile had vanished entirely, replaced by something harder. Thomas stood, the motion abrupt enough to make everyone else freeze. Perhaps we should continue this conversation in my study, privately. It wasn't a request. Marcus followed him from the dining room, aware of Sophia's worried glance, Catherine's slight nod of encouragement. They walked through the house to a room lined with bookshelves and expensive art, closing the door behind them with a soft click that sounded final. Thomas moved to the desk, poured himself another scotch without offering Marcus any.
The silence stretched, deliberate and oppressive. "I know who you are." Thomas's voice cut through the quiet. "I had someone look into you the moment you left the cafe. Marcus Webb, 36, janitor at Boston Memorial Hospital. Widower, 1 child, lives in a rent-controlled apartment in Dorchester. Last year's income was $42,000. Your credit score is decent, but not great. You drive a 12-year-old Ford Focus. You shop at Market Basket and clip coupons." He turned, and his eyes were chips of ice. "You're not engaged to my daughter. I don't know what game you think you're playing, but I know my daughter lied, and I know you helped her. I want to know why." Marcus felt his heart rate spike, forced himself to breathe normally. Maybe because she asked. Maybe because she needed help. Or maybe because you saw an opportunity. A wealthy family, a desperate young woman, a chance to upgrade your circumstances. The accusation landed like a slap. Marcus's hands curled into fists at his sides, but he kept his voice level. "I don't want your money. I don't want anything from you." "Everyone wants something." Thomas circled the desk, moved closer. "You're a janitor with a kid to raise and bills to pay. Sophia is beautiful, educated, and stands to inherit a considerable fortune. You expect me to believe you're helping her out of pure altruism? I expect you to believe that not everyone measures value in dollar signs." Noble words from someone who's never had money. Easy to claim it doesn't matter when you've never experienced having it. Marcus thought about Sarah's medical bills, about the second mortgage he'd taken out to pay for treatment that didn't work, about selling everything they owned that had any value, about the crushing weight of debt that still followed him. He knew exactly what not having money meant. He'd lived the consequences every day for 3 years. "You're right that I don't have money, but I have something you can't buy. The respect of my son, peace of mind, integrity that doesn't bend when convenient. Sophia deserves someone who sees her as a person, not a business asset." "And you think you're that someone? You with your $42,000 and your 12-year-old car?" Thomas's laugh was sharp, cutting. "You can't give her the life she's accustomed to. You can't fund her education, provide security, ensure her future. What exactly can you offer her?" "A choice. Something you've been denying her." Thomas's jaw tightened, a vein visible at his temple. "I'm giving you 1 week. 1 week to disappear from her life, end this charade, stay away from my daughter, and I'll consider the matter closed. If you don't, you'll what? Destroy me? I'm a janitor, Mr. Morrison. There's not much left to destroy." "There's always something." Thomas moved back behind his desk, the power position reclaimed. "Your job, for instance. I sit on the hospital's board of directors. 1 phone call, and you'll be looking for work elsewhere. Your apartment. I know the building owner. Rent could increase. That neighbor who watches Liam? Her son is applying to colleges. Recommendation letters matter." The threats were delivered calmly, professionally, each one a surgical strike. Marcus felt cold settle in his stomach, the realization that this man could actually follow through. "You'd threaten innocent people to control your daughter's life?" "I'd do whatever necessary to protect her from making catastrophic mistakes." Thomas opened his desk drawer, pulled out a checkbook. "Or we can make this simple. Name a price. Walk away quietly, and we can both forget this happened." He wrote a number on the check, slid it across the desk. Marcus looked down. $100,000. More money than he'd see in 3 years of work. Enough to pay off debt, build a college fund for Liam, breathe freely for the first time since Sarah's diagnosis. All he had to do was walk away from a woman he'd met 6 hours ago, end a fake engagement that never existed. The smart play was obvious. Take the money, disappear. Let Sophia figure out her own problems. Marcus picked up the check, and Thomas's smile returned. Then Marcus tore it in half. I'm not for sale, and neither is your daughter. The smile vanished. Thomas's hand slammed down on the desk, making the scotch glass jump. You're making a mistake. I will destroy you. I will make sure you never work in this city again. I will. The study door opened. Sophia stood in the doorway, face pale but eyes blazing. Stop! Both of you, just stop! She looked at her father, and Marcus saw hurt and anger warring for dominance. I heard. The whole thing. These walls aren't as soundproof as you think. Thomas's expression shifted, calculation replacing rage. Sophia, I'm trying to protect you from making my own choices? From living my own life? She stepped into the room, and Marcus saw her hands shaking. You can't buy everyone, Dad. Some people actually have principles that matter more than money. You think he's noble? He's been lying to you, to all of us. I know he's been lying. I asked him to. Sophia moved to stand beside Marcus, and he felt her presence like an anchor. I lied about being engaged because you were forcing me toward Harrison. Marcus helped a stranger because his nature is to help people. That's more than I can say for anyone else in this house. Patricia appeared in the doorway, Catherine behind her. The family gathering had officially fallen apart. Sophia, please be reasonable. Patricia's voice carried pleading underneath the composure. We want what's best for you. No, you want what makes you comfortable, what maintains appearances, what serves Dad's business interests. Sophia's voice cracked, but she pushed through. I'm 28 years old. I have a career I love, goals I'm working toward, a life I'm trying to build, and you're treating me like a chess piece. Catherine moved forward, touched her son's arm. Thomas, listen to yourself. You sound like my father did when I told him I wanted to marry your dad. He threatened to disown me, said John wasn't good enough, that I'd regret choosing love over security. That was different. It was exactly the same. Catherine's voice carried steel underneath the gentleness. You've forgotten where you came from. Your father worked construction in Southie. His hands were calloused and his back hurt every night. My parents looked at him the way you're looking at Marcus, like he wasn't good enough because he worked with his hands instead of moving money around on spreadsheets. Thomas's face had gone rigid, but something shifted in his eyes. I chose John anyway, Catherine continued, and we were happy. Poor, sometimes struggling, but happy. He taught you that hard work mattered, that integrity wasn't for sale. When did you forget those lessons? The room held its breath. Thomas looked at his mother, at his daughter, at Marcus standing there with torn check pieces still in his hand. Get out. His voice came out quiet, deadly. All of you, get out of my house. Sophia, if you walk out that door with him, don't expect any support from me, financial or otherwise. You're on your own. Sophia flinched like he'd struck her, but she didn't move toward him. Then I guess I'm on my own. She took Marcus's hand, and they walked out together. Catherine followed, Patricia hovering uncertain in the hallway. Harrison stood at the dining room entrance, expression unreadable. The cold November air hit them as they left the house, carrying the finality of burned bridges. Sophia was shaking, her breath coming in sharp gasps. I can't believe I just did that. I can't believe... Oh, God, he's going to cut me off. The school funding, the apartment, everything. She turned to Marcus, and tears finally spilled over. I'm so sorry. You came to help, and now you're caught in this disaster. And my father threatened you, and... Hey. Marcus squeezed her hand, the one still gripping his like a lifeline. You stood up for yourself. That took courage. Courage and stupidity feel pretty similar right now. Catherine joined them on the sidewalk, wrapping a shawl tighter against the wind. You did the right thing, both of you. Did I? I just lost my family's support. Dad's going to make Marcus's life hell, and I still don't have a plan for how to actually survive without their money. Sophia wiped at her eyes angrily. Some victory. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This isn't over. You have 1 week. T. Morrison. He showed it to Sophia, watched her face crumple. He's going to destroy you. He meant every word of those threats. I know him. When he decides someone is an obstacle, he removes them. Then we'd deal with it. Marcus heard himself say it, surprised by the certainty in his voice. Together. If we're going to maintain this engagement story, we should make it convincing. Public dates, social media presence, the appearance of a real relationship. Sophia stared at him. You want to keep pretending? After all that? After you've seen how vindictive my father can be? I want to help you buy time to figure out your actual next steps. You need to apply to graduate programs, secure funding that doesn't come with strings attached, establish independence. That takes planning. In the meantime, we give your father a target he can't easily attack, a relationship that looks real enough to make his interference obvious manipulation. That's insane. But Sophia's voice carried hope underneath the protest. We barely know each other. We can't just fake a whole relationship. We just survived dinner with your family. Comparatively, everything else will be easy. Catherine laughed, the sound startling and genuine. I like this plan. Thomas expects Marcus to disappear. When he doesn't, when you two appear happy and committed, it undermines his control. It also puts Marcus in the line of fire. Sophia looked at him, really looked. Are you sure? My father will make good on those threats. Your job, your apartment, your life. He'll come after all of it. Marcus thought about Liam asking why Dad never did fun things anymore. Thought about 3 years of careful routine, of avoiding risk, of staying safe and small. Thought about Sarah in that hospital bed telling him to live, really live, after she was gone. I'm sure. One condition. I need to tell you the truth about something. Sophia tensed. What? This isn't entirely altruistic. Helping you, standing up to your father, this whole situation. It's the first time in 3 years I've felt like I'm actually doing something instead of just surviving. So if we're keeping score, you're helping me too. Her expression softened, tears still tracking down her cheeks, but something like a smile breaking through. Mutually beneficial fake engagement. That's one way to frame it. Is that a yes? Sophia looked at Catherine, who nodded encouragement. Looked back at the house where her father stood in the window, watching. Looked at Marcus, this stranger who'd torn up $100,000 and chosen her side over the easy way out. Okay, let's do this. But we need rules, boundaries. This stays fake. We both know it's temporary until I can establish real independence. No actual feelings, no complications. Agreed.
and you have to let me help when Thomas comes after you. I won't just stand by while you take hits meant for me."
Deal. They shook on it there on the sidewalk, a formal agreement sealed with a handshake that felt absurdly official. Catherine insisted on calling them a car. Marcus's was blocks away, and Sophia had driven, and they rode back toward Commonwealth Avenue in silence that felt less awkward than it should have. At Sophia's building, she hesitated before getting out. "Thank you. For tonight. For not backing down. For being crazy enough to keep doing this. I know we just met, but you're a good person, Marcus Webb." "You're pretty good yourself, Sophia Morrison." She left, and Marcus watched her disappear into her building before giving the driver his Dorchester address. His phone buzzed again. Liam, checking in from Elena's. "Did you have fun at dinner? Mrs. Rodriguez made enchiladas, and they're really good." Marcus typed back, "Glad you're having fun. Be good. I'll pick you up tomorrow morning." Another text, this one from Sophia. "Just FYI, this counts as our first date now. You helped me stand up to my family, so technically it was romantic. Sort of. In a weird, dysfunctional way." He found himself smiling despite everything. "Most memorable first date I've ever had. Low bar, but I'll take it. Good night, fake fiancé." "Good night, fake fiancé." Marcus leaned back in the car, watching Boston pass by outside the window. 24 hours ago, he'd been sitting in a cafe with cold tea, living his careful routine, keeping everything small and safe. Now he was fake engaged to a woman he barely knew, had threatened by a real estate mogul, and committed to a plan that would probably blow up in his face. Liam would probably say this qualified as fun. Marcus wasn't sure he'd use that word exactly. But for the first time in 3 years, he felt awake. The hospital called Marcus at 6:15 Monday morning. His supervisor's voice carried the careful neutrality of someone delivering orders from above. "Webb, there's been a schedule adjustment. Your hours are being reduced to part-time, effective immediately. Night shift only, Tuesday through Thursday. HR will have the paperwork ready when you come in." Marcus sat on the edge of his bed, phone pressed to his ear, watching dawnlight creep across the room. "Can I ask why?" "Budget cuts. Restructuring. You know how it is." The lie came smoothly, rehearsed. Nothing personal. Everything about it was personal. Thomas Morrison had made his first move less than 48 hours after Marcus had torn up that check. Liam appeared in the doorway, already dressed for school, backpack hanging from one shoulder. "Who is that?" "Work. They're cutting my hours." Marcus kept his voice steady, refused to let his son see the panic building in his chest. 40 hours to 24 meant 40% less income, meant the careful budget he'd built would collapse. "Is it because of Saturday? The dinner?" Liam's voice went small, uncertain. He'd picked up on the tension yesterday when Marcus had been quieter than usual, distracted. "No, buddy. This is just normal work stuff. Nothing for you to worry about." The lie tasted bitter. Necessary. "Go eat breakfast. I'll drive you to school." He texted Sophia while Liam poured cereal. Thomas made his first move. "Cut my hours at the hospital." Her response came within seconds. "I'm so sorry. Can we meet after my shift?" 6 p.m., same cafe? "I'll be there." The drive to Liam's school passed in a blur of his son's chatter about a science project and upcoming field trip. Marcus nodded in the right places, made appropriate sounds, but his mind calculated and recalculated numbers that wouldn't balance. Rent, utilities, groceries, Liam's after-school care.
Everything depended on that full-time paycheck. Elena caught him on the way back to his car, her expression gentle with concern. I heard through the building grapevine about your hours. News travels fast. In Dorchester? Always. She touched his arm, brief and warm. If you need help with Liam, watching him more, you know I'm here, no charge. We help each other. The kindness made his throat tight. I appreciate that, really. I just need to figure out next steps. Fighting powerful people is expensive. Elena's eyes held understanding that went deeper than casual concern. Be careful, Marcus. Men like that don't play fair. He drove to the hospital for his remaining shift, the building suddenly feeling hostile instead of familiar. Co-workers he'd known for years avoided eye contact. His supervisor handed him the paperwork without meeting his gaze. Sorry, Webb. Orders from above. Marcus signed the forms, watched his livelihood get cut by 40% with a few strokes of a pen. The board of directors had approved the change. Thomas Morrison sat on that board. His phone buzzed as he left HR. Unknown number. Told you I'd make good on my promises. This is just the beginning. Leave my daughter alone. T. Morrison. Marcus deleted the message, jaw tight with anger that had nowhere productive to go. He worked his final full shift in silence, mopping floors and fixing broken equipment while trying to figure out how to survive on half an income. Sophia was already at Cafe Paradiso when he arrived at 6, 2 cups of tea on the table between them. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't fully hide. 12-hour shift in the ER. It was brutal. She pushed 1 cup toward him. I'm so sorry about your job. This is exactly what I was afraid of. It's not your fault. It's completely my fault. You helped me, and now you're paying the price. Sophia's hands wrapped around her cup, seeking warmth. I can't let this continue. I should just give in. Tell Thomas you're gone. End this before he destroys your entire life. And then what? You marry Harrison? Give up your dreams? Spend the rest of your life being managed? Marcus shook his head. No, we stick to the plan. The plan is getting you hurt. The plan is buying you time to build independence. That's still the goal. He pulled out his phone, showed her a spreadsheet he'd built during his shift. I can survive on reduced hours for about 4 months if I'm careful. Cut expenses, tap into savings I've been building for Liam's future. 4 months should be enough for you to apply to graduate programs, secure loans or scholarships, establish yourself outside your father's control. Sophia stared at the spreadsheet, at the numbers laid out in careful columns. You built a budget around helping me. I built a strategy around outlasting your father's pressure campaign. Marcus took a sip of tea, let the warmth settle him. Thomas thinks I'll fold after a few financial hits. He's betting I value stability more than principle. We prove him wrong by not disappearing. By continuing to pretend we're engaged.
By actually spending time together. Building a relationship that looks real to outside observers. Dates, pictures for social media if you use that. Meeting each other's people. Marcus hesitated, then pushed forward. Including Liam. If we're supposedly serious enough to be engaged, you should meet my son properly. The request hung between them, heavier than he'd intended. Sophia's expression shifted, surprise giving way to something softer. You'd introduce me to Liam? Knowing this is temporary, that it's not real? He's 8. I'll explain you're a friend, that we're spending time together, keep it simple. But if anyone's watching, and you can bet Thomas will have someone watching, it needs to look like a real relationship. That means including the most important person in my life. Sophia was quiet for a long moment, hands still wrapped around her tea. Okay. When? Sunday? I usually take him to the park near our place, weather permitting. You could join us. Low pressure, just hanging out.
I'd like that. She smiled, tentative but genuine. Fair warning, though, I'm terrible at sports. If there's baseball involved, I'll probably embarrass myself.
Liam will love teaching you. He takes his coaching duties very seriously.
They planned the details over cooling tea, and Marcus felt the relationship shift slightly. Still fake, still built on necessity, but developing a foundation of actual friendship beneath the pretense. Sophia's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, grimaced. Harrison. Third time he's texted today. He wants to have coffee, to talk about things.
Are you going to respond?
I already told him I'm engaged to someone else. What else is there to say? She set the phone down with more force than necessary. He acts like my no doesn't count, like if he just persists long enough, I'll realize I was wrong. Does he know about the reduced hours? About Thomas going after me? Probably.
Thomas and Harrison's father are business partners. Information flows freely between them. Sophia's jaw tightened,
which means Harrison knows exactly what's happening and approves. He's always believed the right amount of pressure can get him anything he wants. Marcus thought about men like that, the ones who treated resistance as temporary obstacle rather than actual answer. You deserve better than someone who doesn't hear no. I know. Knowing doesn't make dealing with it easier. She finished her tea, checked her phone again. I need to get home, shower, attempt to sleep before my next shift. But Marcus, thank you. For not giving up. For being stubborn enough to fight back. We're both stubborn. That's what makes this work. They parted on the sidewalk, and Marcus drove home through evening traffic, mind still churning through logistics and consequences. The reduced hours would hurt, but he'd survived worse.
Sarah's medical bills had taught him how to stretch dollars, how to make impossible budgets work through sheer determination. Liam was at Elena's, doing homework at her kitchen table when Marcus arrived to pick him up. His son looked up with the question that had been building since morning. Are we going to be okay? With the money? Marcus crouched beside the table, met his son's worried eyes. Yeah, buddy. We're going to be fine. It'll be tight for a while, but we'll manage. Is it because of the lady? The one you had dinner with? Elena busied herself at the sink, giving them privacy while staying close enough to hear. Marcus chose his words carefully. Her name is Sophia. And no, the work thing isn't directly because of her. It's complicated adult stuff involving her family. Do you like her? Liam asked it with the bluntness of childhood, cutting through complications to the simple question underneath. Did he like her? He'd known Sophia for barely 72 hours, but in that time, he'd seen her stand up to her family, choose principle over money, offer to sacrifice her own goals to protect him from consequences. He'd seen compassion in how she talked about patience, determination in how she refused to accept her father's control. Yeah, I think I do. She's a good person in a difficult situation. Is she going to be your girlfriend? The question came quieter, loaded with unspoken concerns about what that might mean for them, for the life they'd built together. Maybe, if things work out. Would that bother you? Liam thought about it, pencil tapping against his math homework. Mrs. Rodriguez says everyone deserves to be happy, even dads whose wives died. He looked up, and Marcus saw Sarah in the shape of his eyes, in the thoughtful way he approached big questions. "I want you to be happy." Marcus pulled his son into a hug, chest tight with love and grief in their familiar tangle. "I am happy, because I have you." "But happier would be okay too." Liam pulled back, managed a smile. "As long as she likes Star Wars, that's important." "I'll make sure to ask about her Star Wars opinions." They drove home to their apartment, small and comfortable and affordable only because Marcus had locked in rent control years ago, another thing Thomas could theoretically attack if he pushed hard enough. But the building owner was old-school Dorchester, the kind who'd lived in the neighborhood for 50 years and didn't care about real estate developers from Beacon Hill. Marcus made spaghetti for dinner, helped Liam with homework, read 3 chapters from the book they were working through together. Normal routines that felt precious now, threatened by forces his son didn't fully understand. After Liam went to bed, Marcus sat at their kitchen table with his laptop and faced reality. The reduced hours cut his income from $42,000 to roughly $25,000. His budget required $35,000 minimum to cover rent, utilities, food, insurance, and the various costs of raising a child in Boston. He had $8,000 in savings meant for emergencies and Liam's future. That could cover the gap for about 7 months if he was careful. After that, he'd need a second job or a miracle. His phone lit up with a text from Sophia. "Can't sleep. Keep thinking about your hours, about how this is my fault. Stop. We made a choice together, a choice I initiated by lying to my parents and dragging you into it. A choice I continued by tearing up a check and choosing your side." Marcus typed back. "Agency goes both ways. I'm a grown man who made decisions with full knowledge of possible consequences. Doesn't make me feel less guilty." "Then help me make it worth it. Apply to those graduate programs. Find funding that doesn't come with strings. Build the independence you need." A long pause, then, "I started 3 applications tonight. Haven't told Thomas. He'd just use it as leverage." "Good. Keep them secret until you're accepted and funding is secured." "You're very calm about all this. How?" Marcus looked around his small kitchen, at the crayon drawings Liam had stuck to the refrigerator, at the photos of Sarah mixed with newer pictures documenting the life they'd built after her death. He thought about the 3 years he'd spent in careful routine, avoiding risk, staying safe. Because for the first time in a long time, I'm fighting for something instead of just surviving. That matters more than the cost. Her response took longer this time. "Thank you for that. For fighting. For caring about a stranger's problems." "You're not a stranger anymore." "No. I guess I'm your fake fiancé." Which is somehow weirder and better than stranger. Marcus smiled at his phone, at the absurdity of the situation and the unexpected connection forming through it. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's another shift." "You too." "Good night, fake fiancé." Wednesday brought the first formal retaliation beyond the job hours. Marcus's landlord called with an apologetic tone that didn't quite hide discomfort. "Marcus, I got a call yesterday from a real estate developer, Thomas Morrison. He made an offer to buy the building." Marcus's stomach dropped. "Are you selling?" "Hell no. I've owned this place for 40 years, and I'm not selling to some Beacon Hill developer who'll flip it into luxury condos and push out everyone who's lived here for decades." The landlord's voice carried working-class solidarity that gave Marcus hope. But he was very insistent, offered well above market value. When I refused, he mentioned the building might face some code compliance issues,
suggested inspections could be expensive. "I'm sorry. This is because of me. This is because of him being a bully. Don't worry about it. I know people in the inspection office, and my building is up to code. Just wanted to give you a heads up that someone's trying to pressure me through you. I appreciate the warning and the loyalty. Us Dorchester folks stick together." The landlord paused. "You need anything, you let me know. These rich guys think they can push around everyone, but some of us don't push easy." The call ended, and Marcus felt the weight of community support settle around him. Thomas could threaten his job, but Dorchester protected its own. Friday morning brought Sophia to his door, unexpected and agitated. Liam had already left for school, giving them privacy Marcus hadn't realized they'd need. "Thomas froze my access to the rent account." The words tumbled out as she paced his small living room. "My roommate Julia called. The check bounced. Thomas knows she's in surgical residency, knows she can't afford the full rent alone. He's trying to force me out by making me a financial burden to someone who can't help me." Marcus guided her to the couch, noticed her hands shaking. "What did you tell Julia?" "The truth. That my father's trying to control me through money. That I'll figure something out." Sophia looked around the apartment, taking in the modest furniture and lived-in comfort. "I have about $2,000 in personal savings, enough for 1 month's rent if Julia will let me stay." "She will. Roommates who make it through medical training together are bonded for life." "How do you know?" "Sarah's best friend from nursing school still sends Liam birthday cards. That kind of friendship survives anything." Marcus made coffee while she calmed down, the ritual of ordinary action helping settle them both. "What else did Thomas do?" "Called the hospital administrator, suggested there might be concerns about my relationship with maintenance staff affecting professional judgment."
They're not investigating formally, but I got pulled aside for a conversation about appropriate workplace boundaries. She accepted the coffee mug, wrapped both hands around it. "He's attacking both our jobs." "Can he get you fired?" "Not directly, but he can make my life difficult enough that staying becomes untenable. The administrator reminded me about nepotism policies, suggested that dating someone I work with could create conflicts of interest." Her laugh came out bitter. "We don't actually work together, and we're not actually dating, but explaining that would require admitting the engagement is fake." Marcus sat beside her, close enough to offer presence without crowding. "So we make it more real. Publicly establish that we're in a relationship, that it started outside work, that there's nothing inappropriate about it." "How?" "Social media, if you use it. Photos of us together outside the hospital. Witnesses who can confirm we're dating. We build a narrative that's harder for Thomas to attack." He pulled out his phone, rarely used Instagram account with maybe 30 followers. "Post a picture. Tag me. Make it obvious we're together." Sophia took out her phone, opened an app Marcus barely understood. Her Instagram showed a carefully curated life, nature photos, pictures with friends, the occasional shot of her in scrubs with patients' faces carefully obscured. Hundreds of followers, the kind of social presence he'd never bothered building. "Selfie?" She held up the phone, angled it to capture them both on his couch. Marcus felt awkward, unpracticed at this. Sarah had hated social media, preferred living moments to documenting them. But he leaned in, managed something like a smile. Sophia snapped 3 photos, chose one, typed a caption he couldn't see, posted it before he could ask. "There. Now it's Facebook official," which is apparently still what people say even though I posted on Instagram. She showed him the screen. The photo caught them mid-laugh at something, the moment before the shutter clicked. The caption read, Sometimes the best things happen when you're not looking. #unexpected, #happy. Comments appeared almost immediately. Friends Marcus didn't know, asking questions, offering congratulations. One stood out, a name he recognized from Sophia's earlier mentions. Harrison_Whitmore. Interesting. We should talk. Sophia's jaw tightened as she read it. He can't just let go. It's like he views me as a problem to be solved rather than a person making choices. Block him. If I block him, he'll escalate. Better to just ignore. She set down her phone, met Marcus's eyes. Are you sure about this? Making it more public means making it harder to untangle later. When this is over and I have independence, ending a fake engagement that everyone believed was real will be complicated. We'll figure it out when we get there. Right now, we focus on making it through the next few months. Sunday arrived with unusual November warmth, temperatures pushing 60 degrees. Marcus took Liam to the park as planned, texted Sophia their location. She arrived 20 minutes later, dressed in jeans and a jacket that looked expensive but comfortable, hair pulled back in a ponytail. Liam looked up from the baseball glove he'd been examining, studied her with an 8-year-old's unfiltered assessment. You're Sophia. I am. You must be Liam. Your dad's told me a lot about you. Did he tell you I'm really good at baseball? No hesitation, just confident fact. He did. Think you could teach me? I'm pretty terrible at sports. Liam's eyes lit up with the prospect of coaching. I can teach you, but you have to listen and practice. That's what Coach says. They spent the next hour at the park, Liam demonstrating proper throwing technique while Sophia gamely attempted to follow instructions. She was indeed terrible at baseball, but her willingness to try won Liam over faster than skill would have. Marcus watched them from the bench, his son animated in a way he hadn't been since Sarah died, explaining stance and grip with exaggerated patience. Sophia listened intently, asked questions, praised Liam's teaching abilities. When they took a break for water, Liam sat between them on the bench, swinging his legs. Sophia's nice, even though she can't throw. I heard that, and it's accurate. Sophia smiled, bumped Liam's shoulder gently. But I'm getting better, right? Maybe. You need more practice. Then I'll have to come back and practice more. Liam looked at Marcus, some question in his eyes that he didn't voice in front of Sophia. Later, Marcus knew, there would be questions about whether she was staying, whether this was serious, whether she might become permanent. They grabbed ice cream from a truck parked near the playground, sat on the grass while Liam explained his science project in detail. Sophia engaged fully, asked intelligent questions about hypotheses and variables, suggested refinements to his methodology. You're good with kids. Marcus observed it quietly, watching her help Liam brainstorm control groups. I work pediatric ER sometimes. You learn to communicate at their level, make them feel heard. She licked melting ice cream from her cone, casual and comfortable. Liam's easy, though. Smart, articulate, knows what he wants. He likes you. The feeling's mutual. She met Marcus's eyes over Liam's head, and something passed between them that wasn't entirely fake. His phone buzzed. Elena, checking in with a question about picking Liam up from school Tuesday. He responded quickly, aware of Sophia watching. Your neighbor? The one who helps with childcare? Elena. She's been a lifesaver since Sarah died. Single mom herself, 3 kids, somehow always has room for one more at her table. It's good that you have that support. Sophia's voice carried something wistful. Community like that. People who show up without expecting payment or favors. Dorchester takes care of its own. Marcus pocketed his phone. Your world doesn't work that way? My world is transactional. Everything comes with strings, money, connections, access. Even friendships are networking opportunities.
She watched Liam chase a ball across the grass. I want what you have. This authentic life where people help because they care, not because they're positioning for advantage.
It's not all perfect. Poverty has its own complications.
I know, but at least it's honest. She stood, brushed grass from her jeans. I should go. Early shift tomorrow, and I need to finish a graduate school application. They walked back to the parking area together, Liam between them, holding both their hands.
To any observer, they looked like a family. Single dad, potential stepmother, kid comfortable with both. The image felt both true and false simultaneously. At her car, Sophia hesitated.
Thank you for today, for letting me meet Liam properly, for including me in your life.
Thank you for being terrible at baseball and making my son feel like an expert.
Her laugh was genuine, unguarded. She leaned in quickly, kissed Marcus's cheek, then immediately looked embarrassed. Sorry, there were people watching, and I thought... It's fine. His face burned where her lips had touched, the casual affection unexpectedly affecting. We're supposed to be engaged. Kissing is normal. Right. Normal. She got in her car quickly, waved at Liam through the window before driving away. Liam looked up at Marcus with wide eyes. Did Sophia just kiss you? On the cheek. It's a friend thing. Mrs. Rodriguez kisses my cheek when I leave her house, but she doesn't look embarrassed after.
Liam's observation skills were inconveniently sharp.
Sophia looked embarrassed.
That means she likes you.
It's complicated, buddy. Adults always say that when they mean yes but don't want to admit it. They walked back to the car, and Marcus couldn't argue with his son's logic. The call came Tuesday morning while Marcus was replacing light bulbs in the hospital's third-floor corridor. His supervisor's voice carried an edge sharper than budget cuts warranted.
HR needs to see you. Now.
The Human Resources office smelled like air freshener masking anxiety. The director sat behind her desk with the expression of someone delivering news she'd rather avoid. Beside her, a man in an expensive suit, hospital attorney, Marcus guessed from the briefcase and predatory stillness. Mr. Webb, we've received a formal complaint regarding inappropriate workplace conduct. The director slid a document across the desk.
You're accused of using your position to gain access to a staff member for personal purposes, specifically pursuing a romantic relationship with nurse Sophia Morrison while working in departments where she's assigned.
Marcus scanned the complaint, saw Harrison Whitmore's signature at the bottom. The allegations were precise and damning. Claims that Marcus had deliberately requested assignments to the ER, that he'd used maintenance access to enter restricted areas, that hospital staff had witnessed behavior that crossed professional boundaries. This is fabricated. I work where I'm assigned, and my relationship with Sophia started outside the hospital entirely. Can you prove that? The attorney's question came flat, uninterested in actual truth. Because we have sworn statements from 3 employees claiming they witnessed you spending excessive time in the ER during Nurse Morrison's shifts. I clean the ER. That's literally my job.
The complaint suggests your presence exceeds normal maintenance requirements.
The director's sympathy felt genuine but ultimately useless. Mr. Webb, the hospital takes workplace harassment very seriously. We're not terminating you at this time, but you're being placed on administrative leave pending full investigation. 2 weeks, unpaid. The words hit like a physical blow. 2 weeks without pay, on top of already reduced hours, meant financial catastrophe. Marcus forced himself to stay calm, to think instead of react. Who filed this complaint? Mr. Whitmore represents the Morrison family's philanthropic foundation, which donated substantially to the hospital's new wing. He expressed concerns about staff conduct affecting the foundation's willingness to continue support. The attorney's meaning was clear. Money talked, and Marcus's voice didn't carry the same weight.
So Thomas Morrison is using Harrison to attack my job, and the hospital is letting it happen because of donation threats. The hospital is following proper procedures to investigate credible allegations. The director at least had the grace to look uncomfortable. You'll receive notification about the investigation timeline and interview schedule. Until then, you're not to be on hospital property except for the formal hearing. Marcus left the office feeling hollow. Unpaid leave meant zero income for 2 weeks. His savings would have to cover everything: rent, utilities, food, Liam's needs. The careful budget he'd built collapsed further. He called Sophia from the parking lot, got her voicemail, left a message with the essentials. Then he sat in his car and did the math again, hoping different numbers would appear. They didn't. His phone rang. Catherine Morrison's name appeared on the screen. "Marcus, I just heard what happened," Thomas told Patricia over breakfast this morning, practically gloating about protecting the hospital from inappropriate staff. Her voice shook with fury. "This is unconscionable." "It's strategic. He's eliminating my income without directly firing me, making it impossible for me to sustain opposition. Come to my doctor's appointment this afternoon. 2 o'clock, Boston General Cardiology. I'll tell Thomas I need someone to drive me since Patricia has a luncheon. We can talk without him monitoring." Marcus agreed, more from not knowing what else to do than from any real plan. He drove home, told Elena what happened when she caught him in the hallway. "Bastards." Her assessment was succinct and accurate. "You need money? I can lend you some. Not much, but enough to help." "I can't take your money." "It's not taking, it's borrowing. Community loan. Pay it back when things settle." She pressed $300 cash into his hand before he could protest. "For groceries." "And don't argue. My pride survived accepting help when Roberto died. Yours can survive it now." The kindness threatened to undo him completely. Marcus pocketed the money, throat too tight for adequate thanks. Catherine's appointment was at a practice in the medical district, glass and steel architecture designed to project competence and wealth. She waited in the lobby, dressed simply but elegantly, and her relief when she saw Marcus was palpable. "Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would after everything Thomas has done." They signed in, settled into waiting room chairs among other patients and worried family members. Catherine's hands twisted the tissue in her lap, and Marcus noticed the tremor that hadn't been present at the cafe weeks ago. "How are you really?" "Tired. The stress isn't helping my heart." She looked at him directly, eyes carrying weight beyond physical illness. "I'm dying, Marcus. Not today, probably not this month, but soon." The doctors use words like progressive decline and limited options, but what they mean is my heart is giving out. Does Thomas know? He knows the diagnosis. He doesn't accept the prognosis. He thinks money can fix anything, including organ failure. Her smile was sad, knowing. "I've lived a good life. Married a man I loved, raised a son, saw my granddaughter become someone I'm proud of. I'm ready for what comes next. Sophia isn't ready to lose you, which is why I'm fighting as hard as I can for as long as I can. But I won't watch Thomas destroy her future while I'm still here to stop it." Catherine's voice strengthened, purpose overtaking frailty. "I'm changing my will. There's a trust fund, $200,000, that was meant to be split between Thomas and Sophia upon my death.
I'm redirecting it entirely to Sophia, with stipulations that Thomas can't access or control it.
Marcus started to protest the confidence, the inclusion in family financial planning, but she raised a hand. You should know because it affects your situation. When Sophia has independent funding, she won't need Thomas's approval for graduate school. She can establish herself completely separate from his control. That money represents freedom. Thomas will fight it. The will is ironclad, my lawyer assured me, and I'm including a letter to be read at the will reading explaining exactly why I'm doing this. Thomas needs to hear from his dying mother that he's become what he once fought against, someone who uses money as control instead of seeing human worth. They were called back for the appointment, and Marcus sat in the examination room while the cardiologist delivered news in careful, clinical language. Ejection fraction declining, medication adjustments needed, lifestyle modifications that wouldn't ultimately change the outcome. Catherine took it with quiet dignity, asked practical questions about timeline and symptom management. The doctor estimated months, maybe a year with luck. She nodded like he'd told her the weather forecast. In the parking garage after, she gripped Marcus's arm for support and for emphasis. Don't let Thomas win. Whatever he does, however he attacks, don't give in. Sophia needs someone willing to stand against him, to show her that choosing herself over family approval is possible. I'm not sure I can survive much more of his attacks. Then survive them together. You and Sophia actually together, not just pretending. I've watched you two over the past weeks, the way she lights up when you text, the way you relax when she's around. Whatever started as performance is becoming real. Marcus helped her into his car, processed her words during the drive back to Beacon Hill. Was it becoming real? He thought about Sophia's embarrassed kiss at the park, about laughing together over terrible baseball throws, about the way conversation flowed easily now, where it had been stilted at first. I barely know her. You know her well enough to take financial hits defending her choices. You know her well enough to introduce her to your son. Time doesn't measure connection. Commitment does. Catherine settled into the passenger seat, eyes closed against fatigue. I knew I'd marry John after 3 weeks. My parents said I was crazy, that it was too fast, that I'd regret it. 40 years of marriage later, the only regret I had was not marrying him sooner. They reached her house, and Marcus walked her to the door. Patricia answered, surprise flickering across her face before settling into cool courtesy. Marcus, how kind of you to drive Catherine. He was lovely company. Catherine kissed his cheek, whispered against his ear. Be brave. Love is always worth the risk. He drove away before Thomas could appear, mind churning through complications that multiplied faster than he could process them. His phone showed 2 missed calls from Sophia, a voicemail he listened to at the next red light. I heard about the suspension. Harrison's behind it. I confronted him at the hospital and he basically admitted using the complaint to pressure me. I'm so angry I can barely see straight. Call me when you can. Marcus called. She answered on the first ring, voice raw with frustration. This has to stop. I can't watch him systematically destroy your life. Where are you? Home. Julia's at the hospital. I'm here staring at my computer trying to figure out how to fix this and coming up empty. I'm coming over. He shouldn't. They needed distance, perspective, time to think clearly. Instead, he drove to Commonwealth Avenue, took the stairs to the 4th floor, knocked on her door. Sophia opened it with eyes red from crying, pulled him inside. The apartment was dim, curtains drawn against afternoon light.
She'd been sitting in the dark, Marcus realized, alone with anger that had nowhere productive to go. Harrison threatened to file a formal ethics complaint with the nursing board if I don't stop seeing you. He framed it as concern for my career, protecting me from making mistakes. Her hands shook as she paced the small living room. He actually believes he's helping. That's the worst part. He's so convinced he knows what's best that he can't see how controlling he's being. Marcus caught her hand as she passed, stilled the frantic movement. What did you tell him? That I'm an adult, capable of making my own decisions, that his interference is harassment, that he needs to back off. He looked at me like I'd spoken a foreign language, like the concept that I might not want his protection is literally incomprehensible to him. She was shaking, rage and helplessness vibrating through her frame. Marcus pulled her closer, meant it to be comfort, but she turned in his arms and suddenly they were too close, her breath warm against his neck, her hands clutching his shirt. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for all of this. The words came muffled against his shoulder. You've lost income, job security, peace of mind, all because you were kind to a stranger. Stop apologizing. His voice came rougher than intended. I made choices. I keep making them. That's on me. She pulled back enough to look at him, and something in her expression shifted. Why? Why do you keep choosing this when it costs you everything? Because somewhere between the cafe and the park, between fake engagement and real conversation, she'd stopped being a stranger. Because watching her fight for independence reminded him what courage looked like. Because helping her felt like purpose, and he hadn't felt purposeful since Sarah died. Because giving up would feel worse than fighting. The space between them held weight, potential energy waiting for catalyst. Sophia's eyes dropped to his mouth, back up, question written clearly across her features. This was where they should step back, reestablish boundaries, remember the relationship was performance. But Marcus's hand was already moving, cupping her face, thumb brushing away tears still wet on her cheek. We shouldn't. Even as Sophia said it, she leaned closer. Probably not. The kiss happened anyway. Tentative at first, testing, then deeper. 3 weeks of tension and fear and unexpected connection transforming into something neither had planned. Her fingers tangled in his hair, his arms pulled her flush against him, and for a few heartbeats nothing existed except this, want and warmth and the sharp relief of giving in. Reality returned gradually. They broke apart, breathing hard, foreheads pressed together, neither willing to fully separate. That complicated things. Sophia's voice shook, but she didn't move away. Significantly. We should talk about it, set new boundaries, figure out what this means. We should. Marcus kissed her again, briefer but no less intense. Later, after we deal with the current crisis. She laughed against his mouth, the sound breaking tension into something manageable. They separated reluctantly, and Sophia sank onto her couch with the expression of someone whose world had just shifted foundation. Okay, new crisis to add to existing crises. I think I have actual feelings for my fake fiancé. Marcus sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. Same. This was supposed to stay uncomplicated. Nothing about this situation was ever uncomplicated. Fair point. She turned to face him, tucked one leg under herself. So what now? We're dealing with your job suspension, my father's ongoing attacks, Harrison's harassment, and apparently a real attraction that's developed in the middle of the chaos. Where do we even start? We start by you finishing those graduate school applications. How many are done? 3 submitted, 2 in progress. I'm applying to 8 programs total, focusing on schools that offer good financial aid packages. She pulled her laptop over, showed him spreadsheets tracking applications, deadlines, funding possibilities. If I get accepted with decent scholarships, I can take out loans for the rest. Federal loans, not private ones tied to my father's credit. When will you hear back? Rolling admissions, so anywhere from 4 weeks to 3 months, depending on the program. The waiting is brutal. Marcus studied the timeline, calculated against his own financial runway. I can survive 3 months on savings if I'm careful. After that, I'll need either my job back or new employment. The investigation will conclude before then. HR has to make a determination within 30 days per hospital policy, which means they'll decide based on who has more power to hurt the hospital, me or the Morrison Family Foundation. Sophia's expression darkened. I'll testify. Explain that our relationship started outside work, that you never pursued me inappropriately, that the whole complaint is fabricated revenge. That puts your job at risk too. I don't care. I'm not letting Harrison's lies destroy your career. She pulled out her phone, typed quickly. I'm documenting everything, every interaction with Harrison, every threat, every inappropriate interference. If this goes to formal hearing, I want evidence. They spent the next hour building a defense, gathering text messages and emails, constructing a timeline that proved the relationship predated any workplace contact. Sophia's organizational skills impressed him. Color-coded spreadsheets, categorized documentation, detailed notes on every incident. You're terrifyingly good at this. Nursing school taught me to document everything. If it's not written down, it didn't happen. Habits carry over. She saved the file to cloud storage, backed it up twice. Now, even if my father tries to make my computer disappear, the evidence exists. Marcus's phone buzzed. Liam's school, the number triggering immediate parental anxiety. He answered, heard the nurse's carefully calm voice. Mr. Webb, Liam had a small accident on the playground. He's fine, just a sprained wrist. We've iced it and he's resting in the office, but you'll need to pick him up. 20 minutes later, Marcus arrived at the school with Sophia beside him. She'd insisted on coming, medical knowledge potentially useful. They found Liam in the nurse's office, wrist wrapped in an ace bandage, looking more embarrassed than hurt. I fell off the monkey bars. It's not even that bad. His protest died when he saw Sophia. Oh, hi. Hey, champ, let me see that wrist. Sophia knelt beside his chair, gently examined the injury with professional efficiency. Nurse Collins did a good job wrapping it. How's the pain, 1 to 10? Like a 3. It hurts, but not terrible. Liam watched her check his fingers for circulation, test range of motion. Are you here because you're Dad's girlfriend or because you're a nurse? Both. Multitasking. She smiled, sat back on her heels. I think it's just a sprain, but we should get an x-ray to be sure nothing's fractured. I can call ahead to the ER, get you seen quickly. They drove to Boston Memorial, Sophia calling from the car to arrange fast-track admission. The ER was chaos as always, but they were pulled into an examination room within minutes. Sophia's presence transformed the experience. Nurses greeted her by name. The attending physician consulted her about Liam's history. Treatment happened efficiently instead of crawling along usual emergency room timelines. Liam watched the interactions with interest, occasionally glancing between Sophia and Marcus like solving a puzzle. The x-ray came back clean, just a sprain, wrap and rest, follow-up if pain worsened. In the parking garage after, Liam broke the silence he'd maintained since discharge. Everyone at the hospital knows Sophia. They kept saying hi and asking her questions. I work here. They're my colleagues.
They really like you. That one doctor called you the best nurse in the ER.
Dr. Patterson is biased because I saved him from a medication error last month.
Sophia unlocked her car, glanced at Marcus.
Should I follow you home? Make sure Liam gets settled?
You don't have to.
I want to.
Simple statement. No room for argument.
So she followed them back to Dorchester, helped Liam into the apartment, settled him on the couch with his injured wrist elevated and ice wrapped in a kitchen towel. Marcus watched her move through his home with unselfconscious ease, finding what she needed without asking: ice, towels, the ibuprofen from the bathroom cabinet. Liam observed it all with an 8-year-old's unfiltered assessment. When Sophia went to the kitchen for water, he leaned close to Marcus. She kissed you, didn't she? For real this time, not just friend kissing. Marcus kept his voice low.
What makes you think that?
You're acting different, and she keeps looking at you the way Mom used to look at you in the old pictures, the ones from before I was born, when you were still young and happy. The observation landed with unexpected force. Marcus looked at his son, at the wisdom accumulating too quickly in someone who should still be simply a child.
Would that bother you? If Sophia and I were actually dating?
Liam thought about it seriously, the way he approached all important questions. I liked Mom. I miss her. But she's gone, and you've been sad a really long time. Sophia makes you less sad. So I guess that's okay.
Just okay?
Okay and maybe good. But I need more time to decide about the good part. He adjusted his ice pack, winced slightly. Also, she's really good at medical stuff, so if I get hurt again, having a nurse around would be practical. Sophia returned with water and children's ibuprofen, measured the dose precisely, stayed while Liam took it. She sat on the couch beside him, pointed to his bookshelf. What are you reading right now? Percy Jackson, The Lightning Thief. It's about Greek gods, but in modern times. His enthusiasm overcame his wariness. Do you like reading? Love it. Haven't had much time lately with work and everything else, but yeah. Fantasy especially.
They discussed books while Marcus made dinner, and he heard Liam's walls coming down piece by piece. By the time food was ready, his son was showing Sophia his favorite passages, explaining plot points with animated gestures that didn't aggravate his wrist. After dinner, after Liam had gone to bed early due to pain medication making him drowsy, Sophia and Marcus sat at his kitchen table with coffee neither was really drinking.
He's amazing. Smart, thoughtful, resilient. Sophia wrapped her hands around the mug. You're doing an incredible job raising him alone.
Some days it feels incredible. Other days it feels like barely holding things together.
Marcus studied her across the small table.
He likes you. That's not a small thing.
I like him. Also not a small thing. She met his eyes, and the kiss from earlier hung between them, unresolved. We should probably discuss what happened at my apartment.
Probably.
I have a policy about not dating while my life is in chaos.
Seems like a recipe for disaster, using a relationship to escape problems instead of addressing them. That's a good policy.
Except you make me want to violate it.
Her honesty was characteristic, direct and unflinching. I don't know if this is real or if we're just two people thrown together by circumstances, finding comfort in each other because everything else is falling apart.
Marcus thought about Sarah, about the love they'd built over years of ordinary moments. He thought about grief and loneliness and the careful walls he'd constructed to avoid feeling too much. He thought about Sophia breaking through those walls, not through grand gestures, but through showing up, being present, choosing him repeatedly, even when it cost her.
I think it's both,
circumstances and real, comfort and actual connection. He reached across the table, laced his fingers through hers. We don't have to define it right now. We can just acknowledge it exists and deal with one crisis at a time.
What's the next crisis? Your father's next move. He's lost control of you, lost the ability to dictate through financial pressure alone. He'll escalate. The prediction came true Thursday morning. Marcus's phone rang before 7, his landlord, voice tight with stress. Marcus, building inspection showed up at 6 a.m. They're going through everything with a microscope, citing violations I've never heard of. I think Thomas Morrison made good on his threat. How bad? Bad enough that they're talking about fines, required repairs, possible tenant displacement during renovations. This is going to cost me tens of thousands I don't have. The landlord's frustration bled through. I'm not selling to that bastard, but he's making it expensive to hold the line. Sophia texted minutes later. My rent check cleared. Thomas unfroze the account. Called to tell me he's willing to restore my full allowance if I come to my senses. I told him where he could put his allowance. The chess match continued, moves and counter-moves. But Thomas had resources they lacked, and patience was a luxury Marcus's bank account couldn't afford. Friday brought the formal hearing notice. Hospital HR scheduled it for the following Wednesday. Investigation complete, decision pending. Marcus would have an opportunity to present his case, bring witnesses, defend against allegations. The letter came with barely concealed subtext. The hospital needed this resolved before the Morrison Foundation's annual donation review. He called the union representative, a weary man named Donald, who'd fought these battles before. They met at a diner near the hospital, Donald reviewing the complaint with the exhausted cynicism of someone who'd seen this script too many times. They'll find against you, maybe not termination, but probably permanent reassignment away from any department where Morrison's daughter works. The hospital can't afford to lose foundation money over a janitor, even though the allegations are false. Especially because they're false. Truth doesn't matter when 7-figure donations are at stake. Donald stirred coffee that had long gone cold. Best case scenario? You keep your job, but under restrictions that make it clear you lost. Worst case, they terminate for policy violations and you're unemployed with cause on your record. Marcus absorbed this, felt the walls closing in from every direction. What if I quit before the hearing? Then you're unemployed without the ability to collect unemployment benefits, and Morrison wins without even having to fight. Donald leaned forward. Look, I've been doing this for 20 years. Rich people always win these things. Always. Your best bet is to take whatever deal they offer and move on. What deal? They'll probably offer resignation in lieu of termination. You leave quietly, they don't contest unemployment, everyone pretends it was mutual. You lose your job, but keep your dignity. Dignity felt like cold comfort against mounting bills and a son who needed stability. Marcus thanked Donald, drove home through traffic that matched his mood, slow, frustrating, going nowhere productive. Elena intercepted him in the hallway, her expression grave. The landlord told me about the inspection. The building might have to be evacuated for repairs. I'm sorry, this is my fault. This is Thomas Morrison's fault for being a vindictive ass. She crossed her arms, defiant despite circumstances. But we need a plan. If we get displaced, I have family in Roxbury with space. You and Liam can stay with us until it's resolved. The offer should have been relief. Instead, it highlighted how much collateral damage his choices had caused. Elena didn't deserve housing instability because Marcus had helped a stranger. His neighbors didn't deserve facing displacement because he'd stood up to a wealthy family. That evening, Liam asked the question Marcus had been dreading. They were doing homework at the kitchen table, math problems and vocabulary, Ordinary routine disrupted by extraordinary stress.
Dad, are we going to have to move?
Maybe temporarily. The building needs some repairs.
Because of Sophia's dad?
Children heard everything, understood more than adults gave them credit for. Marcus set down the pencil he'd been using to check long division. Yeah, because of him.
Is Sophia worth it? All the trouble, I mean?
Liam asked it without judgment, genuinely curious about his father's calculus. Was she? Marcus thought about her standing up to her family, about her competence with Liam's injury, about the way she fought for her dreams, despite every obstacle. He thought about the kiss, about possibilities emerging from chaos. I think so. But that's a decision I made that affects you too. If you want me to stop, to back away from this whole situation, I will. Liam considered his homework, pencil tapping against the page. Mom used to say doing the right thing was hard. That if it was easy, it wouldn't count as right. It would just count as convenient. She did say that. Then maybe this is right. Even though it's hard and scary and making everything complicated. He looked up, and Sarah looked back through his eyes. I just want you to promise that even if things get worse, we'll still be okay. You and me. Marcus pulled his son close, held him tight enough to convey certainty he didn't entirely feel. We'll be okay. I promise. No matter what happens, we take care of each other. The promise felt both true and terrifying. He'd survived Sarah's death, learned to function through grief that should have been paralyzing. He could survive this too. They could survive this. His phone lit up with a text from Sophia. Can you come over? Something happened. Marcus arranged for Elena to stay with Liam, drove to Commonwealth Avenue with growing dread. Sophia met him at the door, pale and shaking, thrust her phone toward him. The screen showed an email from Harvard's nurse practitioner program. His heart sank, anticipating rejection, more bad news in an endless stream. Then he actually read it. Dear Ms. Morrison, we are pleased to offer you admission to Harvard's Doctor of Nursing practice program beginning fall semester. Based on your exceptional academic record and clinical experience, we are also pleased to offer you a full tuition fellowship. Sophia's tears were joy this time, pure relief breaking through weeks of accumulated stress. I got in. Full scholarship. I don't need Thomas's money. I can do this on my own. Marcus caught her as she launched herself at him, spinning her around in the small apartment, both of them laughing with the giddy release of finally catching a break. When did you apply to Harvard? 3 weeks ago. I didn't tell anyone because I didn't want to jinx it, and Harvard seemed impossible. But they have the best pediatric NP program in the country, and I thought, why not try? The words tumbled out rapid fire, excitement and disbelief tangled together. This changes everything. I have independent funding, a path forward that doesn't require his approval or his money. They celebrated with cheap wine from her fridge and takeout from the Thai place down the street, sitting on her floor because the couch felt too formal for this moment. Sophia kept refreshing the email like it might disappear, grinning every time the words stayed real. I should tell Catherine. She'll be so proud. Sophia pulled out her phone, fingers hovering over the screen before she set it down. Actually, I want to tell her in person. See her face when she hears? Is that silly? Not even a little. Come with me? Tomorrow? I know it's a lot to ask, but I want you there when I tell her. You're part of why this is possible. You gave me courage to apply, to believe I could do this independently. Marcus agreed, and the next morning they drove together to Beacon Hill. Catherine answered the door herself, surprise and pleasure lighting her face when she saw them.
Sophia and Marcus, what a lovely surprise. Come in, come in. Thomas and Patricia are out, so we can actually relax.
They settled in the sitting room where the engagement dinner had fractured weeks ago, and Sophia practically vibrated with suppressed excitement. Grandmother, I got into Harvard. Full scholarship. I'm going to be a nurse practitioner. Catherine's hands flew to her mouth, tears immediate and unrestrained. She pulled Sophia into a fierce hug, holding her granddaughter like she was the most precious thing in the world.
Oh, sweetheart, I'm so proud, so incredibly proud.
She pulled back, cupped Sophia's face.
Your grandfather would have been proud too.
He always said you'd do something special. They talked for an hour, Catherine asking questions about the program, about Sophia's plans, about how this changed the trajectory of her life. Marcus watched from the periphery, witnessing a grandmother's joy in her granddaughter's success, and felt privileged to be included. As they prepared to leave, Catherine pulled Marcus aside while Sophia used the bathroom.
Thank you for being exactly what she needed when she needed it most.
Her grip on his arm was surprisingly strong.
I'm updating my will this week. When I'm gone, Sophia will have the financial security to build any life she chooses. But more importantly, she'll have the example you set. That choosing yourself over others' expectations is not only possible, but necessary.
I didn't do anything special.
You stood when others would have bent. That's everything.
She pressed something into his hand, a key.
This opens a safe deposit box at Boston Trust.
Inside is a letter for Sophia, to be given to her if Thomas ever succeeds in wearing you down. It explains everything about her grandfather, about the choices I made, about why I'm so insistent she not bend to her father's will. If you're not there to remind her, that letter will. Marcus pocketed the key, understanding the weight of the trust being placed in him.
Catherine, don't say I'm being morbid. I'm being practical. My heart is failing, and unlike Thomas, I accept reality.
She smiled, gentle and certain.
Promise me you'll make sure she gets it if I'm gone and you're not together. Promise me she'll know she comes from people who chose love over security, who believed human worth measured in character rather than bank accounts.
I promise.
Sophia emerged from the bathroom and they made their goodbyes. In the car, she was quiet, processing the visit and what it represented. She's preparing to die. She's preparing for you to live.
Marcus started the engine, pulled away from the house that represented everything Sophia was leaving behind.
There's a difference. They spent the rest of Saturday together, no crisis forcing proximity, just choosing each other's company. They took Liam to the Science Museum, where Sophia's knowledge of anatomy made her the coolest adult in the exhibits, according to his son's assessment. They grabbed pizza for dinner, sat in Marcus's small apartment playing card games while Liam explained the complex rules he'd invented. When Liam went to bed, Sophia stayed, and they ended up on the couch with late-night television neither was watching. Her head rested on his shoulder, his arm around her waist, and the domesticity of it felt both foreign and natural. I'm terrified. Her voice came soft against the quiet. Of graduate school. Of cutting ties with my family completely. Of whatever this is between us. I'm terrified of all of it.
Being terrified means it matters. Easy things don't scare us. Very wise. Did you read that on a greeting card? Liam's teacher has motivational posters all over her classroom. I've absorbed them through osmosis. He pressed a kiss to her hair, casual affection that had become habit somewhere along the way. You're allowed to be scared and still move forward. They're not mutually exclusive. What are you scared of? The question deserved honesty. Marcus thought about it, about fears he'd been avoiding in favor of immediate crisis management. That I'm using you to feel alive again? That this works now because we're united against a common enemy, but once that enemy is defeated, we'll realize we have nothing else in common. That Liam will get attached, and then you'll leave, and he'll lose another person he started to love. He paused, made himself say the deepest fear. That I'm betraying Sarah by moving on. That loving someone else means she mattered less. Sophia shifted to look at him, eyes serious in the dim light. You're not betraying her. Grief doesn't have an expiration date, but neither does your capacity to love other people. Both things can be true. How do you know? Because I'm a nurse. I've sat with dying patients who made their spouses promise to find love again, to not spend the rest of their lives alone. Love isn't finite. It doesn't run out when someone dies. It just changes shape. She took his hand, threaded their fingers together. Sarah would want you to be happy. That's not betrayal. That's honoring what you had by believing you deserve it again. Marcus kissed her then, deep and slow, pouring 3 years of loneliness and new hope into the connection. She responded with equal intensity, hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. They broke apart, breathing hard, and reality reasserted itself. Sophia checked her phone, grimaced at the time. I should go. Early shift tomorrow, and I need sleep. Stay. The invitation slipped out before Marcus fully thought it through. In the guest room, or here on the couch. I don't want you driving this late, and I like having you here. Her smile was soft, understanding. Guest room, because I don't trust us on the couch, and Liam doesn't need to wake up to complicated explanations. So she stayed, borrowed a shirt to sleep in, settled into the small room that had become storage more than bedroom. Marcus lay awake in his own bed, hyper-aware of her presence down the hall, listening to the old buildings settle around them. This was getting real. Past performance, past convenience, into territory that mattered and could hurt. The smart thing would be to pump the brakes, re-establish boundaries, protect himself and Liam from potential heartbreak. But smart had kept him safe and small for 3 years. Maybe it was time to risk being hurt if it meant actually living.